welcome everyone. I'm very excited and honored to be here today to talk about the role of digital media in the art system. It has been an honor, and I want to thank Mina and Julia for the help and the invitation, and especially Laura Vincenti, the director of the fair, and the Italian Institute of Culture of Pretoria for inviting me here today. For who doesn't know who I am a young founder of a foundation in Italy based in Turin. What we do is mainly work with video and new media and contemporary art. We are focusing on this language because we think that, especially today, it's quite important to understand how also art and new generation are approaching and using digital tools and languages to express themselves. And so we're doing it through exhibition, educational programs, which is something we are really focusing on because we think there is not enough support also for this language, and we do also prizes. So I hope that if you don't know what Recontemporary is, from now on you'll be a bit aware of what we do, and if you need support on video in terms of careers, we will be happy to help and suggest some kind of career path. And well, I'm honored to be here today with Terence Maluleke and Chidi Nwabani and Marina Polenka. It has been an honor to meet you, and we actually didn't know us before, so I'm very excited to talk with you. I'll let you introduce a little bit. Terence is a great artist. I love his paintings. He has been working between digital practice and more traditional ones. Marina has been an artist, a curator, an art consultant, but also the artistic director of the Unseen Foundation. So I'll ask you more about it. And she has been also in many festivals for photography. And Chidi, well, Chidi has been he's a great designer, a great artist, and he's also the founder of Luti, which is an amazing platform and system to make digital art. And he has worked with many brands and great collaboration. So he will talk about this a little bit more. Before asking you to introduce yourself, I just want to say a few things about how the system has been changing in the last years. If we think about the contemporary art and how it actually has started everything from the 50s, because we have to imagine that through the use of photography, the art system faced quite a crisis in the idea of representation. What we have now in terms of contemporary art is also coming from this, because art was used to tell stories, to be the proof of the events. It was like it needed to be the most real practice to tell stories. But when photography happened, everything has changed, and also the idea of using art, because we didn't need anymore, art to prove the history or what we were doing. So photography has completely reshaped the idea of contemporary art. So then he started using arts in terms of avant-garde, you know, to express themselves, to use like languages in terms of changing and reshaping the creativity, and also finding new way of expressing and telling stories and emotion. And nowadays, I think we're facing again a bit of crisis, thanks or because of the artificial intelligence. What we thought that it was like the proof that something was real, effectively happened, now we don't have it anymore, thanks to artificial intelligence. So we don't really know what we can trust in terms of tools. You know, so it's really interesting, I think, to be living contemporary art nowadays and see how everything is changing also through the use of technologies, that starting from photography so to digital media, and also because we have completely changed our life through social media, and so I think today we're gonna have a lot to talk about, and I'm very curious to start. So I'll let Terence introduce himself first, and
Cool.
and
Can you guys
then
hear me? All good? I'm Terence Nsako Maluleke. I'm based from Soweto, Johannesburg, and I'm a fine artist and animation director. Yeah, this is going to be an amazing talk. I'm excited. Thanks for the invite.
Marina, do you want to tell us a bit more about your story as a artistic director, but also as an artist, because you've done so many different things, and
I danced in many different things. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marina Paulenka. I'm Croatian, ex-Yugoslavian, but I live in Berlin, where I'm directing a museum for photography, arts and culture, Fotografiska Berlin. I started as an artist. I studied photography, actually, and expressed myself in a very traditional, analog way. But 15 years ago, when I started International Photography Festival in Croatia, I somehow switched to curation. And I was always interested to see how photography can flirt with other mediums and how we can push the boundaries of the mediums, because I realized that the audience is really reacting very cool on that. And my biggest compliment would be when people would come and say, "Oh, is this photography?" But we started to educate people, you know, what it means, because photography always depended on technology, always changed. I can touch that point a little bit later. This job brought me later to Amsterdam, when I was artistic director of the fair Unseen Amsterdam, which was focused on contemporary photography practices, where actually we showed art that was not longer than 5 years. So you could see there like the most advanced innovative practices in photography. But it was not only straight photography, it was objects, installations, video art, from students to established artists. And we worked closely with collectors to educate them how to collect and preserve that photography. And then currently I'm working in a museum. Fotografiska is not a museum like everyone, like any other, because we are really trying to think what museum of tomorrow is. Not only a boring place where we are preserving art, but where we are bringing diverse audiences and communities, where we're educating them and showing work of multidisciplinary artists who are using photography in a very creative way. I also prepared some slides, so later maybe I can show you those shows.
yeah,
Thank you.
we'll be happy to see them. Chidi, I think you have quite an interesting career path, and so can you tell us more about what Ludi is, and also your great collaboration, and how you are using also, you know, the digital platforms and technologies in your life?
Yeah, so my name is Chidi Wubani. As some might tell from my name, I'm Nigerian, but I actually grew up in London, currently living in the UAE right now. And I started a project called Luti, which the inspiration came from, it was actually a UNESCO report that came out, I believe, around 2017. And that report said that 90 to 95% of all of Africa's cultural heritage actually lives outside of Africa.
Damn.
Now, this like really kind of like shocked me, and I had to think about, well, what could I do possibly to change that? What could I do in my power? And I was just like, well, why don't we create something where we can actually take that back if there's that, or how do we change that statistic? And that's where Luti came into play. And the beginning of Luti actually starts with us retelling that story. So the story actually begins with a heist in the British Museum. And I don't know, Mina, I don't know if you can play the first video, because it's better for you guys to see the video, which is this one, if you can see. Then if you just click once, it should play. So this was a heist on the British Museum, but there was a twist, right? So imagine two masked men going to the British Museum, dressed as if though they were going to rob the place, but there's a twist in there, the fact that it was a digital heist. So we went there dressed with like masks, balaclavas, and used LiDAR technology to take scans of the Benin bronzes and later the Rosetta Stone. And then once these were then digitized, I did another project with them, which is actually the return of the Rosetta Stone and an NFT project with the Benin bronzes. And it marked one of the first moments in history that we had a digital repatriation of stolen artwork. But I see the heist as another way for us to look at how we can take back. So it's not just a heist of like a physical heist, but it's more of like a heist of power and a heist of narratives. So taking this old, I guess I see like some of the artifacts that are from the Benin bronzes and many artifacts that are in European museums. They're almost like dead culture in a way, because the purpose that they had previously for our ancestors is no more. It has a new purpose. The new purpose is more for display. Right, so how do I now take that away from the museum into the digital context and give it a new meaning? And that's the essence of like the project.
What you're saying is actually really, really interesting. There is a lot of data showing that today the most viewed art is on Instagram. I mean, not on physical terms. And museums are using digital tools so much through tourists, and so art is becoming for show on digital platform more than for a real experience. So everything is changing nowadays. And so, Terence, how you balance, between the traditional work as a painter and this digital system?
It's a good question. I find myself blending the two. I don't choose one or the other.
Yeah.
The most common question people ask me is like, choose one. And I'm like, I don't have to choose one. I balance both. I think the one complements the other. The danger becomes where sometimes I find in my own practice, because sometimes I use digital as a place to start my ideas. I do like rough ideas. Digital is much more flexible because, you have Control, Alt, Delete, and you have undo, and you can just be so quick in how you move around the digital world, and it's much more flexible. And traditional, it's much more tactile. It's like, I like the idea of feeling the thing and feeling and seeing the colors. There's an immediacy to it. And the danger becomes when the digital starts to overshadow the traditional. So I gotta have to find a balance. And when I present it on online, on social media, there's I think you guys understand this. It's like putting your heart into something that is dedicated for content. There's a danger in that as well, because people look at it and then they just scroll. And so the challenge becomes, how do you now captivate the audience? So now as a creative, you have to be much more creative and find unique ways into captivating an audience. So for me, I've found storytelling is the anchor for me. I'm a storyteller. I come from the background of animation. So I infuse storytelling into my fine art. So I now fuse storytelling into the paintings. I will narrate what it means. I will tell a story. And the beauty of that is my experiences. Yesterday, I was kind of feeling overwhelmed with this art fair, and I'm moving around. And I remembered I uploaded a work that has a story behind it. And so I went back to it. And the narration was, it follows this character who's on a horse. And she's going through the world, and she's alone, and she's feeling out of place. And the horse, as she's riding it, is starting to get frustrated. And so she calms it down. And I narrate all of this through the story. So it became a place where I can go back to my work and hear my work. And I can see my work and I can recognize myself. And so I think the challenge is becoming much more authentic and telling your story and expanding the medium of social media and taking people on the journey so that it can captivate people more as opposed to just scrolling past your work.
Do you think this is a good opportunity to tell more about art, or it's actually something bad?
Do you think it's something bad, as in what do you mean? Can you expand on the question?
I mean, it's of course a challenge, as you were saying, to captivate the attention of the public, and also, it's like,
Oh,
are
I
you doing
see.
are you doing for them, or are you doing for yourself? In terms
Yeah.
of, I mean, once doing art, it was not just for show. Now it also for show, and it's for. I mean, especially we are here today in a fair, and a lot of gallery are using social media a lot to sell, and also not just to sell, but to show their artworks, and I mean, everything has changed also in terms of exhibiting art for social media. So that's what I would like to.
So
to
I
hear
find
a bit more.
that maybe social media isn't just the end. It's a place for visibility. Using it for visibility and not just content. So work needs to live beyond the Instagram. That's the first place you present it, and there will be creative ways in how you present it. But storytelling has to permeate beyond the screen. We have to, it's to capture the view so we can all be in one place and we can all actually experience the work and ask the artist what about the journey. And then from the artist directly, those direct engagement, you can learn so much. And I find that it can be so uplifting in terms of like interacting. Even when I was interacting with you guys, there's more depth and it gives so much context to the work. Like when I heard you broke through what is this British Museum? I'm like, what does that mean? And so giving me context to what that means and the important work you do in regarding archiving our artifacts. There's a charm to it because it's like you're bringing back something we can't have, but now you are reimagining it in a metaverse where we can actually experience a work as our own, and we can use those references going forward. So it expands. It's massive.
But I mean, it's interesting to talk about like physical objects on digital system, but how it is to work on digital on the digital world and then uploading digital digital artworks online. So do you face a lot of criticism, Chidi, for doing this? I mean, have you seen difficulties? And how do you think, I mean, this is like now shaping also the system?
Yeah, I think very, very early on, I moved from this being a purely digital project to it being like a phygital project, right? So having having elements of like just as Terence was saying now, it's multi-layered. How do you tell that story? And yeah, one of the things that we find with digital pieces is that, for example, a painting will be framed or on a canvas. You would only ever use a frame or a canvas for one thing, which is to view paintings. That's it, or to view artwork. But a screen has multiple uses. A screen has, you watch TV on there, people use their mobile phones, you're looking at the screen. So it also changes what you're seeing, because now you're looking at the artwork, but you're also viewing it within the screen as well. And I think as a digital artist, we need to take that into account as well, which is like the medium and the canvas that we're using. So for me, the way that I try to look at this is to make this like multi-layered. We have the digital, like the digital artifact, but then there's also a physical like element to it. One of the, I don't know if you could bring up I think it's like the third slide on my deck. One of the ways in which I did, how many, just a show of hands, how many people know the Rosetta Stone, or what is the Rosetta Stone? A show of hands, no? Okay, so the Rosetta Stone is like one of the most important artifacts, so it's said to be one of the most important artifacts. It was used to decipher ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, and its real name is not the Rosetta Stone. Its real name is the Hajar Rashid, and it's from a place called Rashid in Egypt. If you go onto the next slide. So we did a project where I worked with, next slide again, after, and again, next, yeah. So I worked with Professor Monica Hanna, who is an Egyptologist, and taking that heist that I said in the beginning from the British Museum, we actually flew to Egypt and used this is a geolocated AR technology. So taking that scan from the British Museum, went to Egypt and then placed it back in its original position in the citadel in the town of Rashid. And then if you go to the next slide, so then the next part of this, what a lot of people don't know is that the original stela of the Rosetta Stone, it was actually broken. So a lot of people just know this kind of black shape, but the original stela was a lot larger. So if you click again, it should play this video. So then the second layer of this was like a sculpture. We then created this sculpture, which was the Rosetta Stone, but wrapped in a way, and then the AR on top of this, which when, you tap the AR on your phone, and it brings the Rosetta Stone back to its original likeness. So it was like a 3-layered project where you had the return, then you had the retelling of the story, and then you had the rebuilding of the story, all like layered in one. So I think with that, taking just like the one concept and layering on top, it gives it more of a meaning to it. And it's if this purely just lived on screen, I think the story would have lacked like the depth. But it's taking that extra effort to start layering on top of this, using digital, then using a physical sculpture, then laying a digital on top of that. It brings a lot more to it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, of course, there's also good things about technology and also helping us to see through what we could not see properly nowadays. And I think Marina can tell us more about also institution are using digital tools to, especially like Chidi was showing, to go deeper in the direction of also teach the audience, more about what they're seeing and the artwork they're watching, and also to guide them, into an exhibition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, would you like me to reflect on that, or is there a question?
Please. It's a
Yeah, I think that responsibility is institutions, museums, galleries, art advisors, but also journalists to educate everyone. Education is the key point. I'm also teaching photography, and at many universities, professors are so scared what students are producing. Like, you applied for photography, your final thesis has to be photography, you know. Some of them are really open for experimentation, like Iole in Switzerland. I've never seen like the most craziest things what students are producing. So they also need platforms where they can be shown, you know. Aside social media, yes, institutions has to be open to integrate in their programs exhibitions and educate audiences. So every time when we have exhibitions, which is not a pure photography, we try to do like workshops or panels to talk about it. When we had Marco Brambilia, who is using AI, or Josefa Cham, who is using gaming practices, we did that through the panels, through additional content, you know, so people are not scared, so they can really enjoy and see how actually creativity can be pushed, you know, because if we are just waiting in our comfort zone, nothing will happen. We are passive.
Yeah.
And new technologies are pushing us to move forward, you know, and it's just, I think, a tool. Painters in 19th century, they also used cameras to translate the perspectives and do the paintings, you know. When photography came, everyone thinks, oh, it's a dead of the painting. No, as you said, it pushed. Then photography was black and white. In 70s, color photography. Oh, kitsch. No, actually, media magazines brought color photography, which is now actually the artistic practice. You need to have a very good reason why you're creating today in black and white, right? And then in 90s, we have transition from the analog and film to the digital, you know. And still some people have PTSD about these discussions that I see that are also happening today. So I think that when we were mentioning AI, it can only push the creativity, but it's all always we need to remember like intention, why we are doing that. And it cannot be only the tool for its own purpose.
Yeah.
yeah.
But what if it's different this time? I was asking Chidi this because AI feels like a different shift. I know, you know, the jump from photography to, well, from painting to photography, it felt like a big jump, but AI kind of feels like it's truly replicating human
Knowledge.
creativity, knowledge.
Knowledge and everything what is so far collected, but not future.
But we are still here. You
We
know?
are still here, but what we are afraid about the truth, the debate about the truth is old for a century. Photography was never a truth.
Fair.
Yeah.
Because you are deciding in which moment you're going to frame specific piece of the reality, you
Yeah.
know. And this debate will continue always, you know.
Yeah, I find that when I feel, because AI specifically can become like a very overwhelming topic. And what I find is, because it's like, what's the point in actually doing anything? Because this thing is doing it much faster, much quicker.
Yeah.
It's thinking way beyond. And it's like, then what do we have to contribute? And so the answer I find is my story. That's what I have to contribute. My story is much more different from anybody. I'm more unique. I come from a unique place. I have a story to tell. And so that's the thing that will keep us going.
I cannot
Yeah,
agree
but
more.
can I say
Yeah.
something about this? I mean, if you ask ChatGPT to reply to a question, what is going to be the job for the future? I mean, considering AI is like taking places and you know, reshaping also the way of production and a lot of different jobs have been obsolete right now. So and ChatGPT will probably say you should need to be a creator. So arts is something that I is not going to replace. I mean, we are human. We use art, and we have always used since the very beginning of the humanity. You know, to express ourselves, to tell emotion, stories, and it's so it's like it's really fun what you were saying. I mean, it's like considering that this is like a common question for
Yeah.
artists. because they're feeling overwhelmed by artificial intelligence and the potential that it has. But actually, there's this tool that we have that artificial intelligence doesn't have, and we have always to think that we are the one in charge of artificial intelligence, because we are the one giving instruction on how to use it and how to shape and how to create art through their tools. So we always forget that artificial intelligence is something that we have created, and we are on power. We can use it in multiple levels, but it's really something that we can shape.
I find that there's a speed in which it's moving, where it's not accounting for, for writers specifically. It's moving at a so much faster rate where the need to slow it down, that argument to need to slow it down feels much more ethical, because it's replacing writers at a faster rate than they can think about the next thing. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like it's do you guys believe we should integrate with it? We use it as a tool, or discard it at all? Because I want to know where we stand with this.
I think that, like, what you're saying is it's a genuine concern to have, because when you look at like you said, the speed at which it moves, it can be quite scary. But if we look at history, and like you were also saying about photography, and when photography came in, like it naturally, like the way the world works, things work in trends, and things will come in, and then something else will then come in. So I'm just very excited about what is the next like artistic movement that's going to come out of this like technology that we've had. The same as there were artistic movements that came out of the introduction of photography. Now some people resisted it and said that we're going to go maybe more in a movement is more like surrealist than going quite literal in photography. So now where are people going to go if we resist AI? We may go into a place where it allows us to tap into another part of art that we've forgotten about. And that now becomes something, okay, AI can never really interact with the spiritual entity of art the way that a human can, at least for now anyway. So maybe that might push people to move now into that way of like art being a form for us to express ourselves. So I'm excited about what's going to come, but in order for that to happen, we can't be scared of it. We have to use it. We have to get in and start, playing around with it. Starting to make ideas within using like AI and other technologies.
Yeah, and also, as Marina was saying before, not necessarily AI is the truth. We think, of course, it's easier to write, to use it, and also in our daily life to research. But have you actually tried to research for something specific and not receiving help? There's also this thing that if you use ChatGPT like for free, what you receive is going to be an answer coming from 3 years ago, and they're taking, they're not actually able to they're collecting all the information, so the fake ones, the right ones. So as an institution, it's quite interesting because it's the first time I've seen it recently. We were applying to a fund from Europe, a grant for a project. And writing the application, there was like asked to write down if we were using artificial intelligence to write the application, and of course, we might had, because you know, when you have to use a specific kind of tone, and also you want to maybe I don't know, you know, do it in the right way, you also ask ChatGPT to help. But then that made me thinking about like how we are so much relating to artificial intelligence nowadays for something that we truly think is important for us, and giving them the you know the power to control something which is important for us, even if we know that it might be wrong, you know. And but talking about like artificial intelligence, and how also everything is changing in terms of control, and well, also of the truth. I want to ask Chidi, since he has used NFTs, how do you think is going to be? I mean, we all have heard about NFTs and blockchain through the years, and now there's not. I mean, it's not on conversation anymore. But I mean, you have used also this kind of tools, and so I would like to know, how do you think is the evolving technology are going to use them in a kind of certificate? Or I mean, how should we know what is the real history of something? So talking about truth, is this something that can help or not?
Yeah. So when I used the NFT, and sometimes I hate using the word NFT because it's like during that whole spectacle in 2019 kind of time where CryptoPunk was sold for like 2.3 million, and all the headlines, and then everyone was like, oh, if it's the NFT, it's a scam and things like that. You know, it had a lot of like noise around it, and the majority of the space were just projects for hype, reselling. There were generally a lot of scams, but within that there were like a lot of projects, a lot of genuine projects that were using the technology for good. And like, for example, with Luti, it was used for like to talk about provenance, like how do we talk about ownership within this whole theme of stolen artwork. But I think that one of the things that I find as like what you would say like a quote unquote digital artist, or someone that's used NFTs, is how it's almost been separated from like normal just being like an artist. And I think we shouldn't really separate the two. It's firstly about like the visual that you're seeing, but then the second part of it is about that conversation that you're having, and whether you're using digital or physical means, we're still trying to have that same conversation.
Yeah, that's true. And Marina, I mean, you're working with photography so much. So photography has also used this kind of tools nowadays. So how do you think, I mean, this artificial intelligence, but also blockchain and social media are shaping also the new creativity for the new generation? I mean, it's really, we're now facing so many different possibilities in terms of creativity, but also of challenges in terms of art. So I would like to know, how do you think also the new generation are now believing that, I mean, they're thinking of how art should be and what means to be an artist nowadays?
Let's start from this. Photography democratized somehow art, and everyone is taking pictures. Everyone is posting on social media. But it's not that everyone is artists. So that's the difference first. Second, I think that the finally engagement with audience is real and direct, because audience now are following creative process directly. We are not anymore waiting exhibitions to happen, which are very important temp bombs when we are like facing the art. but we are part of the creative process of the artists, you know, who are sharing with the audience their process, who are asking the questions. Audience can participate in that process, you know. Younger generations are more focused on immediacy, on visibility, on followers, of course, and they're challenging traditional gatekeepers, museums and galleries, so they don't need to wait anymore for their validation, but they get validation from the audience. There are so many examples of famous artists today. For instance, Amalia Ullmann, if you remember her,
Yep.
who actually created the first Instagram art by pretending that she's like she invented these all selfies in bathrooms, and I mean, she finished Royal College in Art in London, and then after a year she said, "This is all fake. It's my fake persona," you know. So like so many things has happened in the art world in past 10 years. When we talk about NFT and blockchain, it's just the new way of how we save, preserve, and monetize art. It's something different to discuss. And I think that what also changes from previous generations is speed, volume. Today you can create a lot of it, you know, which doesn't mean that it's not quality, you know, content.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Terence, so I mean, do you feel talking about speed and content and social media? I mean, do you think this? I mean, this is a part like it's similar to the question I asked you before. I mean, how do you think? I mean, are you suffering for this speed that we
Am I what for speed? Sorry.
I mean, when you no, are you suffering? Because,
Suffering. Oh.
Suffering, yeah. Because I mean, social media requests to post not daily, but at least you know often, and I mean, not necessarily creativity
Yeah.
is such a quick process. So I mean, how do you?
You are almost turned into a TV station
Yeah.
that cannot sleep. No, like it feels like that. It feels like there's like this algorithm or this monster of an algorithm that has like let me tune into what Terence is doing. You know, the beauty about that is that you get to showcase your process. You get to showcase the unseen. Where before artists would work in isolation, and there was a mystery about it. But now the mystery is demystified. There's no mystery, and there's something beautiful about that. But there is that thing you have to regulate where you're not a TV station. You know, you're an artist, and sometimes things take time. And Instagram kind of like, no, you need to post 5 times a day, or else I'll punish you. And it's ridiculous, but that's honestly how artists are feeling, because you find validation through your phone vibrating, that ting ting. It's like it literally is a drug, and you kind of have to listen to your inner voice, and your inner voice will tell you, no, slow down. The thing we're trying to do is beyond content. The thing we are trying to do is pour our hearts out into the canvas, tell our truth, you know, looking at the painting and seeing yourself. Sometimes with an overwhelming amount of work on Instagram, and as you're scrolling, this doom scrolling, you get, your work becomes derivative, and you fail to recognize yourself over time. And so the moment you don't see yourself in your work, then you know you are in a dangerous spot. So it's important that you slow down, listen to what you think, listen to what you feel, and then start working again. And that will dictate your pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, today we have dived a bit on the challenges, but also the great things about digital tools. But I'm sure there's going to be a question. I mean, it's quite a hot topic, so I don't want to steal time. If you have any question that you would like to ask to me or to the other panelists, so feel free to add your point of view to the conversation or ask something. There's question. Yeah, there's one there.
That was writing questions as we went along, and amazingly everyone Sorry, I'll start over. A lot of these tools that we're using are out of our control in a way that traditional media are not. So social media, AI models, we can use them, but we don't have any real creative control over what they actually are. And a lot of these are owned by companies, individuals who have specific goals for their companies, their countries, ways of exercising their power. And they gain that power through the users, whether that's the audiences, whether that's us as artists, or in any other capacity. So I was just curious, what do you think is the relationship now between artists and those in power? If we look at the past, it would have been wealthy people, the church, cultural leaders. Now our leaders are these so-called tech bros and oligarchs. So what's the connection that's emerging between artists in a new frontier and the owners of that space?
That's a beautiful question, bro. Damn, that's a fantastic question. I think patrons have always existed, where the relationship between an artist and a patron is like the patron will always have something. You know, it's like, draw me. I want to see myself through this, and I feel like with the Silicon Valley and the evolution of a patron is like it's a tough question, but it's like we begin to use the algorithm to repeat ourselves. You are looking at other people's stories and you're like, that works, and so I will kind of repeat that and make it work for me. So it's like you begin to forget about yourself, and so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question precisely, but it's the Patreon now is the big machine, the TikToks, the Instagrams, and so in order to separate yourself from that, it's a tough question, actually. Now that I'm
I
thinking
think
about
it's all part of power. I mean, church, and you were talking about, you know, in the past, and who was having the influence, you know, to change other people's mind, to influence their life and their acting, and so nowadays we are talking about influencers online so much, but I mean, we're giving them the power to influence us. And I mean, it's the thing is that I mean, once in the past we didn't have the possibility to choose somehow who we let influence ourselves. Nowadays, we are trying to select at least a bit through our favorites online and on Instagram, or who do we want to follow, and this is a great power. Even if we have to admit that nowadays, unfortunately, social media are used a lot to advertise, you know, also propaganda, and they're used for political you know, communication, and they're reshaping also our mind through contents. But I mean, at least what we can do today to save and preserve ourselves is to be critical in terms of what we see. Always, I think this is something that we really want to enlighten when with Recontemporary Foundation. I mean, to go deeper, and when in whatever you do in terms of looking at content and art, because I mean, there are so many things that you can see, but as we were saying, some can be true, some other can be fake. So I mean, working also with school and younger generation is very important to teach them that they have to grow a critical eye, you know, on what they're doing and what they're looking at, because social media life is not the truth, you know, and for
A little
them
bit.
that they might be more easily influenced by this. It's quite difficult to understand. So I think also this is somehow the role of contemporary art nowadays, you know, to let us reflect a bit more on this. I've seen that. I don't know if I replied your question, or if you wanted to ask something else, because we have a question down here. So fine, okay. Hi, I just wanted to ask. Well, wait. I'll. Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a question to the three of you. As pioneers of the art industry and people who have kind of gone through it and now are in the heat of it, especially with AI and digital forms of art coming through now, I just wanted to ask if there's any advice that you could share to students or artists that are specifically practicing within institutionalized contemporary art schools, as how Terence mentioned, keeping true to your story, but then still having to adhere to maybe the institution that you're in, and how you have spoken about being creative through photography, and how you've spoken about how to expand and use and utilize AI responsibly. So if there's any advice you could kind of spread to the youth that are in contemporary institutionalized art schools, just to reaffirm our identities as artists who want to reach similar places that you have gone in your personal journeys.
I can help to try and like answer this question. I think for me, because someone who didn't come through the like traditional like art school, actually I studied information design. I found it very, like for me, very beneficial to put in a lot of research, into the work that I do. A lot of the work that I do is about a lot of objects from the past, a lot of objects that are inside institutions as well. For me to do a lot of research into how those objects were used, but now looking at that to inspire the like technology that I'm using today. For example, there was a practice called Umbari from southeastern Nigeria that I used as inspiration for a project that I did with the Venice Biennale, which was a reinterpretation of the museum. Now, the Umbari is like a museum, but it was like a spiritual house, and they use artifacts as adornments to gods. And now I use that same, and also it was something that was ephemeral. It didn't exist for longer than 6 months or 12 months. So I use that same concept to take into the new concept of what a museum could be, like a modular museum. So taking those two things, always looking to the past and seeing how that can tell us things about the technology we're using today. I think there's so many opportunities now for us to introduce AI and link back to how art forms were used in like past from our ancestors, and how there was that spiritual like element to it, or the spiritual realm and the digital realm, how we can merge those two together. I don't have the answer, but I just think it's an amazing concept that we can actually like play with, and for a lot of students to play with that as well.
Yeah, what we say and what we teach and when we advise to young artists when they come to us for help, is to use all the tools that they can they can use in terms also not just social media, but you have to get a great balance between the social media, but also real life. And sometimes there is a lot of young artists who approach us, but they've never been visiting museum, which is like, how do you want to be an artist without having even visited, a biennial or a festival or a museum? It's like, And they're like, yeah, but we use social media. Well, it's a bit different. I mean, it's really hard sometimes, especially nowadays, to uh, to 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 tell what art is. As Marina was saying before, everyone can be an artist and a photographer nowadays. But I mean, what being an artist mean is that you have to dive into a system which is also made for memory to keep. And this is important, and we have to remember that it's not easy for sure, but this is why you have to learn. You have to not forget the past, but also look at it and take it. I mean, suggestion from it and advice from it. But also, I mean, focus on the future. So what you can change. I mean, has a Recontemporary Foundation. I started doing this because also I grew up in the art system because my father is a gallerist, and well, I grew up into fairs and working with artists, and especially with arte povera. Which is a kind of movement from the 60s in Italy, which were using poor materials. You know, it was very materic in terms of art. And I think in Italy we're struggling to go into the digital system because of this, because we are so much used to like physicity in art. But working with him and starting to learning from him, I've seen that a lot of proposal in contemporary art have been already seen. And so while I was pointing out like at some artists and during our visit to museum or exhibition, he was like, yeah, but I've seen it in the 70s already. You know, that's kind of things. It was like, there was nothing new for him. But then I thought, well, technology might change this. I mean, we have new tools. We have new way to express ourselves. So, I mean, I think it's very important to find your own system, not forget to balance, you know, to learn from the system, but also to use the tools that you can have to create new experiences, new way of narrate your art and everything.
Just to add on that, sorry,
Yeah.
because sometimes, you know, you could go to a museum and not find yourself. Unless you go to the British Museum, you'll find a lot of yourself.
How
there.
you'll find everything there. You'll find it there.
But I think it's important to also see yourself as the museum. Like when you look into the mirror, you're not only seeing yourself, you're seeing beyond. You're seeing your mom, you're seeing your dad, you're seeing your grandfather, you're seeing your great-grandfather. So there's a story there that you can tap into. And there's so much there. Just it's about digging deep, really dig deep and really find the core of your story, and it will expand from there. Yeah.
I also wanted to just say, like you mentioned about like a lot of students, maybe they haven't been to a museum or they haven't been to like a Biennale before. I actually want to admit that actually before I did the Venice Biennale, I had never been to a Biennale. In fact,
Okay.
actually, like it'll be the first time to admit that when I first got the email, I didn't know what it was, right? So you can actually have a foundation in you already of like learned experiences that you can use and take into these places. So you shouldn't feel that, oh, maybe because I'm don't come from a certain background, or you know, maybe you don't have that traditional upbringing in certain ways, that you can't enter into these spaces, because you definitely can. It's more about your perspective, the stories that you have, that you can, just like Terence is saying, take that experience from yourself and bring it into something new. And that's where people see things that they've never seen before.
Yeah.
And that's what makes you unique.
Yeah, that's true. And we have another question. Yeah. Ah. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
Hi.
So last year, I attended the Investec Art Fair because I was working for Tunnel. It's a company that exports for a lot of artists in South Africa internationally, really affordably, seamlessly. I also realized that artists suck with admin. Really suck with admin. I know I'm sitting in a room full of artists and I'm saying this and I'm so brave for saying this. I mean, artists too, don't attack me, but I don't suck with my admin. But a lot of people do, right? And I was able to see this, over the years because my background is in logistics. So I've been shipping for a lot of you. So I felt quite a big detachment between artists and the business world. And let me just open my notes because I'm gonna yap and I know we have like 5 minutes. I wrote my question down. So here's what I wrote down. Art has always been at the forefront of revolution. I love this conversation today because we're taking this conversation from online to in person. It's people who create art talking to people who are in the art supply chain. I have a degree in supply chain, so you're all in the supply chain, whether you're the artist, the buyer, the curator, the moderator, whoever you are part of the art supply chain. I hope someone can answer this question for me today. It's a tricky question, but I think our biggest exports in Africa is our art. We're talking about tech, AI, digital mediums, and all that. But in that, like the gentleman said, the big four, the Meta guy, the South African tech guy, were at Donald Trump's inauguration. This year, I changed my mind. I'm not in supply chain anymore. I'm in politics, and I'm in development politics for business, right? Like I said, artists suck with admin, and I'm so scared because the big four who control the social media that we're using as artists to create our communities, to communicate with our communities, to connect all over the world are in control, so there's room for propaganda. But then now, 90% of art that belongs to Africa is currently not in Africa right now. So how do we move forward now with the way that we share our art online and in the way that we export it too? As artists and even just as Africans, we are now at a place with social media platforms where we can create communities and narrate our own stories as artists. But do you think there's room to bring back more of these conversations in person that have, less propaganda? Because I've heard what you've said, Marina. I've heard what you say, Terrence. I've heard what you've said, Chidi. Even Lola, I've heard what you said, girl. I heard you too, So do you think there's room for us to create more of this? Like, I think there's about, I don't know how many people in this room, maybe like 60. If 60 of us start a community today and say, hey, we're gonna host 10 people at our house for lunch or at a random coffee shop to talk about art, do you think it's gonna really control the narrative for us? Because remember, art is the beginning of the battle. In biblical times, they use art, to bring down the walls of Jericho. It was art, it was trumpets, it was art, whether you believe in the Bible or not, it was still art. We are, even in World War II, people kept, the value of their assets in art. During the Holocaust, they kept it in art. So is there room?
Yo.
Yeah, I will say something. I mean, and also it's going to connect with what Chidi was saying and what I said before. Well, I realized that what I said before was actually coming from a very fortunate background. And, there is the unfortunate things about art is that it's not always accessible. Because you have to travel, you have to visit and spend money for tickets in museum, and that's why we're doing everything for free, and we're really struggling as a foundation also to find the balance, because we want to keep it accessible for our public, especially working with young generation, and it's really a struggle. But there is ways if you really want to find, how much are we spending on other things? So I mean, it's really if something matter to you, this you will find always a way, you know. And of course, it's hard, and this is also the beauty that technology is giving us. I mean, it's giving us tool to travel, to access art that we couldn't have seen before. Of course, we're seeing it in a different way. We have always to remember that there is someone projecting their eye on that art. So we're not looking at with our eyes, but someone else's eye. And I hope this is going something that while you're doing art or working with art or seeing art, you will remember, because I mean, it's always different to experience, you know, ourselves art and doing it. We have such a short time, so
I have, excuse me, a very quick question and just a very quick comment. Thank you for all of your perspectives, because I'm coming away from this exhibition with more of an open mind about AI, to be very honest. I think I'm quite old school, so it's definitely impacted the way that I think about it. And then the other quick question I have is for Chidi. What was the response of the British Museum to your work? I would really love to know if they had a response. And yeah, I mean, the work you do is just absolutely incredible. So, yeah.
Yeah, there was no response. There was no response. There was zero response. So
It's such an opportunity for them. And I know
yeah,
that they're-
to be fair,
it's not
actually,
surprising.
yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
it's actually for institutions in general. It's a huge opportunity for you to now collaborate with artists and retell the stories, because many yes, it's. We're also just looking at objects that are were never really meant to be displayed for the most part anyway. So we can actually have an opportunity where we can start to retell those stories. But there was no response from the British Museum at all.
It's shameful.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I actually wanted to answer back to the lady at the back with your question. You had an amazing question, by the way.
Yeah.
And the one thing I was thinking is that there's a lot of, especially with technology, digital technology, there's this hope gospel that, yeah, technology is going to come in and save the day, and there's always an app for something that will change. But actually the reality is, and we have to kind of accept that reality, but it's not meaning accept and do nothing. It's accept and do something, that we live in a very unequal world. And now it's that choice of whether we are gonna wait for something to happen that's gonna push us together in that community, like you were talking about, or we're gonna just do it ourselves. And I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Are we just gonna wait, sit back for there to be some calamity with, like you were saying, with the big four, or some, they another rule comes in and does something that we now just forcefully leave the platforms, or with our own will we leave those platforms and we create something new ourselves?
yeah,
To push us.
that
Yeah, is it going to push us, or we do?
Cultural and societal organizations. But all these guys, they're not only owning social media, they are owning all of us, everything. We are not, it's illusion that we are free. So you can skip Instagram, but so many other things to discuss. Art was never autonomous. Never.
And we also sometimes think of the art world as the world. Think about it as a community, art community. We have your own art communities, and with those small communities, you can make a big impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other question? No. Okay. Well. Okay. To close the conversation, I hope you had a great time today with us talking, and there were so many things to still to go deeper in this conversation, and there's always will be, because innovation and technology is really shaping our daily life, but also our creativity. We don't have to be worried for the future, but we have to trust the process somehow, and also, yeah, as Chidi was saying, and Terence also, I mean, we will find our community, and art has always been also somehow provoking, the system, and so don't be worried to dare, to go against the system or to change the tools you're using. You don't necessarily need to use social media. There is a lot of artists that they're not using it, and I mean doesn't mean that they're not qualified to be artists, or I mean I think, of course, if you can balance everything, it might be better, because you will be able to find a solid solution, both in digital system but also in the physical one. So creating connection is really important for whatever you would like to do in terms of art. But I don't know if you want to add some other words to the conversation. Well, I want to thank you all for coming and for your interest and for patiently listening to our voices this morning. And also, well, I want to thank again everyone who has invited me here, and you, because it has been an amazing opportunity to know better your work and to get in touch with you. And I'm very honored to be here today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.